Here we go. All right. Heard with your guest destination. We informed you the key can fix. Go live. Okay. Are you getting an error message, Ryan?
Yeah. Well, I got one from X. I don't have premium X, so it's telling me that I can't broadcast to X. So that's fine.
All right. All right. Well,
Now you're good.
Yep. I mean, we're live. We have no idea. See, sometimes you get into studio and you never can anticipate everything that's going to happen. So yes, that's right. There was no countdown to DPB today, the DPB show. I do appreciate you joining us. I know that people are going to kind of find their way here. This is always a tough time, 4 to 5, Tuesdays and Thursdays going live. But really, it's not about live as much as it is the residual effect that happens as people get the ability to review this in the comfort of their home when they would like to listen to the DPB show. We just appreciate you guys as we process through everything that we've gone through over the last, 3 years plus now. I mean, we're well on our way to, I think this is year 4. It is. We have surpassed year number 4 at the DPB show. Granted, most of that time was spent on air on the radio, and just at the beginning of this year, we switched things up. We went exclusively to StreamYard podcasting, and that's where we're at. Hey, real quick, I know you guys are anticipating what the DPB show is about today. You've already seen the title. It is Full Throttle. I don't know how else to explain it, but like the energy drink, right? We wanted more in 2024, more of everything. And look at what transpired a week ago today. We not only won a national election, the federal election for president, but we did that by winning the Electoral College and the popular vote. We also secured the legislative body, both the House of Representatives and the United States Senate. And then, if that's not enough, we already, through Trump's last term, had secured a prominent position in the federal court system, the United States Supreme Court. So when you look at the 3 branches of government, the executive, the legislative, and judicial branch, it was a sweep. But more than just a sweep, when you start breaking down the numbers, and I get it, there's still votes being counted, which is bizarro world, because sometimes you just count until you get the result that you want. And there's going to be plenty of lawsuits filed in not only Wisconsin, but Arizona. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. They tried to rinse and repeat, but they got caught off guard. They didn't know how to overcome the early voting, in-person early voting, the vote by mail, where there was a ground game through the Republican National Committee to change things up, not to get caught flat-footed again. And they went out and they diligently worked every aspect of the electoral process. And we outworked the Dems. But not only did we outwork them, look at the metrics, look at the groups of people. People woke up, they saw it. And how could they not see it? The legacy media, the mainstream media, they couldn't help but walk all over themselves. In fact, it was a debacle. But like I said, we're full throttle now. And that's true in every aspect of government, from local to state to federal, because there are big things coming. I mean, when you start kind of evaluating, because you're hearing so much, and once again, I believe that this is what Trump said he was going to do: execute, execute, execute. He had a plan. And no, it wasn't just a plan that's conceptual. He wasn't going to play all of his cards, because first he had to win the election, which he knew that. And I can tell you, inside baseball, this is the projected outcome months ago. They knew that there was a real good possibility, especially in light of the debate that took place with Joe Biden, and then the changing out the batter with Kamala Harris, the VP, who happens to be as close to Joe Biden as you can get, if not even beyond Joe Biden. And so they knew that this landslide victory and just running the electoral college, the popular vote was a real possibility, which would give us a mandate, which is what you're seeing right now. It is, when I use the word full throttle, I mean, they are going all out. And so in the upcoming days, don't get caught up or overwhelmed by the chatter. And most of it's really good chatter because we have a very, very deep bench on the national scene, and in some states very deep benches in certain states, especially those that happen to be red and have uh, voter ID laws on the books already, because then you can sense that those states are well ahead of the curve when it comes to a lot of what Trump's going to put forth. And no, it is not Project 2025. That's what the radical left wants to continue to try to convince people. You know, when you talk about a party that likes to sow division and fear, that's all they have. Because once again, they can't run on the record. They can't run on what they have done, what they've been unable to accomplish. Think about this. They ran on a tagline to build back better. From what were they building back better? A pandemic that was very, very mismanaged at all levels. And I know that some people are going to say, yeah, but that was part of Trump. Well, the timing of it and everything that went with it, including the vote by mail, the mass vote by mail system that was put in place, is suspect now, especially as we're starting to see the numbers. 155 million votes were cast in 2020, and prior to 2020, it never breached 130 million. Now here in 2024, it looks like it might get to 130 plus, but still there's a significant amount of votes that are missing over the 2020 election. All of this is going to be handled. These people got caught. When I used to listen to a lot of pundits, um, and some are considered far right, some are considered a little Q, and that's okay because they're protected. Their speech is protected by the First Amendment. But you know, they used to say Trump caught him. He caught him in 2020. Well, you start thinking back on Trump's career and politics from 2016, coming down the escalator in 2015 to becoming president in 2016, obviously losing in 2020, obviously during the 2016 presidency, he had to battle everyone, including the swampy Republicans like Mitch McConnell, all the way across the board, Paul Ryan, the Democrats, the Russian collusion, the Spygate that went on. I mean, and on and on and on. And then once again, when he lost after 2020, when the election was stolen from him, he didn't stop. He didn't stop. I put up some pictures on the internet on my Facebook page. You're more than welcome to go out to my personal page. It's kind of a photo dump, but back in 2022, Trump was saying the same things he's saying today. And he happened to be in Quincy, Illinois doing that. But he's never stopped, because making America great again is just not a tagline. In fact, build back better, that could also be his motto, because we have to build back better, because what has happened, we're unburdened from the past. In the immortal words of Kamala Harris, we are truly now unburdened from the past. It is time to look forward, and we're going to do that. We're going to continue to look forward here at the DPB show. It's optimistic. We still should be enjoying what took place last week, and cautiously optimistic about what happens going forward. Just to give you some names, it can't get any better than Susie Wiles. I don't know her personally. I know people who know her, and they're like super impressed. I mean, they said there's nobody better for chief of staff. Deputy chief of staff Stephen Miller, you know, granted, once again, a close confidant, national security advisor, top advisor, senior advisor for the Trump team, and he's always been there. He's a loyal to the Trump cause. Tom Homan, I don't know if you're here locally and watching the DPB show, we had Tom Homan back in, I think it was April. He came to Bloomington And basically the presentation he put on to talk about what transpires at the southern border, he said it was a human crisis. And he recounted stories of what he personally witnessed, and it would literally tear your heart out. It's inhumane what this Biden-Harris administration participated in. It was a form of human trafficking that isn't even met in history by any other form of slavery or selling out human people. That's redundant. People. That's what I meant to say. So Tom Homan, I mean, if you get an opportunity, watch any of his interviews. He just was on CBS. He's been on ABC. The guy's a no-nonsense guy, and he former cop. I mean, the guy just knows law and order, and he's the best person for such a time as this. We got Lee Zeldin. I'm Mrs. Producer. I got you. Thank you. Lee Zeldin is a great pick for EPA. He tends to lean towards business oriented solutions. So the Environmental Protection Agency, rather than green solutions, the EPA is where Lee Zeldin is ending up. You've heard talk Elise Stefanovic. You've heard Kristi Noem's name thrown out, Marco Rubio. The names are going to continue to fly around because these are people who will fill out a roster that Trump has to, not necessarily Trump is going to be very instrumental in a lot of the top cabinet picks, but there's so many positions. You know, when Darren Bailey was running for governor, if he would have won that gubernatorial race, he would have had 1,000 people that he had to assign to different agencies' positions. So that is going to be a big part of it. I know we're 14 minutes in the show, and I definitely want to get Ryan on here real quick. There he is, the man,
Howdy.
the myth, the legend. Ryan, you know where we're at, you know where we're going, and everybody does.
Yep. You know, breakneck speed that this has to happen.
And you know, the condition that Trump has put on, because we've got something happening tomorrow, November 13th, the secret vote, right, in the House, in the Senate.
Yeah.
Where they choose the majority leader of the Senate. And, you know, old habits die. Old Mitch McConnell out there taking credit for being the person instrumental in making sure that we won back the Senate. He wants to have he wants to have influence in who is the next leader of the Senate. And unfortunately, I think that once again, X and the power of Elon Musk and his platform has basically lit up the phones in every Republican senator's office for the past 48 to 72 hours. I mean, they are getting drilled. You know, Rick Scott is the grassroots American first, make America great again candidate for that position, but they've been talking about a couple other senators who they believe would be better positioned for it. You got Thune and gosh, I can't even remember the other guy's name.
John Cornyn. Yeah, Cornyn. So the way I heard it this morning about the difference between the three was Cornyn would kill you by gun or knife really quickly. John Thune would be maybe a stage 3 cancer. And then at some point, you know, Rick Scott would rather just be a cold every once in a while. So your choice would be Rick Scott over the other two. The other two are McConnell favorites. They're the number 2 and 3 under McConnell. We don't want this mandate to be stopped by McConnell's team of minions. So Rick Scott needs to be the answer. Now, is he the most conservative one that we could lead the Senate? No. But there's been also talks about running it all the way back to the Constitution and doing what John Adams did and putting the highest official in charge of the Senate majority, and that would be J.D. Vance. So I think Trump is staying out of it for now, but I think he's got it in his back pocket that if this deal, this election of the leadership does not go the way it's supposed to, he doesn't get the recess appointing that he wants, then he will shove J.D. Vance in there. So I think that'll be interesting to see what happens after Wednesday.
There's a lot going on. Some of the other things, and I do want to get to. We've got a lot to talk about today. We try to do it in a matter of an hour, and it's hard to get everything in. We got Brad Wurth. He's in the wings. Brad's patiently waiting. He knows we came on before we went on air to let him know that we're not forgetting about him. It's just the DPB has to work his magic on the screens here. And if I added him, and then of course he would just be on in the studio. Well, he's already in the studio, but he'd be on the screen. But Donald Trump Jr., and in fact, I believe Eric Trump and others like Steve Bannon, Kash Patel, obviously rumored to possibly be in the wings of the heading up an agency such as the Federal Bureau of Investigation. So you've got this mammoth of an organization because it is the federal government, the bureaucracy. And you're having to replace all these agency positions because there is going to be a mass firing of hundreds and thousands of people. And at the same time being positioned to go ahead from day one and do everything they need to accomplish because Trump's got a bold agenda and he has mapped that out. And especially the last couple of days, he's been producing these videos. And every time he produces a video on sandwiched video by a selection for a different cabinet position, the left, the radical left, the legacy media, these people are losing their minds. They don't even know how to defend this because it is coming at them. You talk about a fire hose. It is multiple fire hoses turned on them, which, that's part of the celebratory mode that we should be in because now it's time. Yep. We have waited for years. We knew it wouldn't happen overnight. Hence why I referred back to Quincy and the Trump rally in Quincy, where Mary Miller was endorsed and Darren Bailey was endorsed by President Trump, because this has been building. We have been marching, and we have been manipulating the system that they put in place. Mm-hmm. And now, as I said, if we can do a better job of playing by their rules that they put in place, we will win. And win is what we did. And now they just are losing their minds. But Donald Trump Jr. is very instrumental in his father's selections. He's leaning into the people. This is Trump 2.0. This isn't Trump 1.0. And I think he underestimated what he was going up against. I think that they have all of the players and pieces they need to fully run the table. Now, I get it. There are people you're going to say, oh, I don't agree with that person. I don't agree with that person. I don't agree with this person. I don't agree with that person. I'm going to tell you right now, and we just mentioned it, anybody is better than what has been in office for the past 3 3/4 of a year. And anybody is better than what the Obama-Biden administration had put in place under Obama's tenure. I mean, when you start looking at the Loretta Lynches and the Clinton families and their selections, I mean, these people were straight up Marxist who had a whole different way of manifesting what our Constitution says. And they're anti-Constitution. They are pro-government. They are pro-big government. And that's one of the tasks that Trump is trying to whittle away at the beginning, meaning he doesn't want to create more government when he's already said that we've got to shrink government. So he's being strategic about what he's doing. I think he's got great minds around him. I'm just thankful for the very small, minute part that I was able to play. But when you compare my part, which I think all parts are important, don't get me wrong. It doesn't matter, big, small. But when you look at a guy like Scott Pressler, who went out and recruited people to register voters in Pennsylvania, well over 50,000 voters, that's impressive. When you watch somebody like Dan Bongino with an audience of 200, 300,000 live viewers on his podcast, and all he said over and over and over and over and over and over again, besides more, but get 10 people, Vote in person. Let's just be disruptive. Let's disrupt what they're trying to accomplish.
Yeah.
That's where we find ourselves now. And it's a good place to be. Like I said, tomorrow is the vote. If you haven't already, reach out to, in Illinois, if we reach out to our senators, it doesn't go anywhere. That's Tammy Duckworth and Dick Durbin. But if you're in one of the states where there is a senator who has a voice on the Republican side of the aisle, you need to reach out to them. Flipping through, I am going to bring him on because I want to get to it because I think it's important because what is happening, howdy Joanne, thanks for joining us today. What is going on in Arizona, Wisconsin, and so many other states where you're watching candidates who are down ballot, whether it's the U.S. Senate or a congressional race, and then getting into your state offices and then your county-wide races. You're seeing more votes for certain candidates than what the presidential candidate received, namely Kamala Harris. And it brings questions. It brings questions again about, okay, what are they doing? Because they knew that on election night that they basically got run out of office, literally run out of office. And now they're trying to do some type of triage, recovery, reorganize besides all of the cannibalistic behavior that they've demonstrated. But I will tell you, there are small pockets and areas where they did have some success. And those usually are in non-voter ID required states. Or no voter ID states. And we happen to live, Brian, we have the prestigious honor of living in a county that was one of the only counties out of 102 in Illinois that turned blue during this election. And that's what I want to spend the rest of the show. I know you've got to take off about a quarter till because both of us are going to be attending our precinct committeeman meeting because it's so important that we do that. And here we are, we're just a week out from the election and we're still hitting the ground running because we've got other elections. We have 2025, the consolidated elections. Then the 2026 election will be here before we know it. So we have to strategize. We've got to look at what worked, what didn't work, and we got to continue to move the needle. So we're just like Trump, right? We can't just sit back and say, gosh, it's great to win. This is what we've waited for. Now it's time to execute and go out and truly do that in all levels of government. But here in McLean County, where you and I are going to be attending a meeting shortly of the McLean County Republican Party, we turned blue. And what is the rationale for that happening? And I want to bring our guest on. Many of you know him. He spent a lot of time on the DPB show last year because he ran for school board in McLean County. The largest school district is Unit 5. And Brad ran for school board. And I just remember this conversation the best. And I always like to tell this story. This was about a week out of the election. And Brad calls me up and he says, DPB, I'm pretty certain I can beat about anyone in McLean County when it comes to politics. He goes, but I can't beat J.B. Pritzker. And I remember my words verbatim. I said, Brad, you are right. You can't beat J.B. Pritzker. And with that, here he is, the man, the myth, the legend, Brad Wurth. There he is. Hey, Brad. Welcome to the DPB show.
The man, the myth, the legend, because it's all past tense and we were unsuccessful in that that school board race. So, yeah, that's all past tense.
But you were unsuccessful. But walk us through why it is, what transpired, and how that relates to what kind of just took place in McLean County turning blue.
Sure. Well, and I told you I'd kind of just walk you through at least my story and kind of how all of it transpired and what put us in front of everybody. But I was going to share some video. Here's the stuff that kind of truly inspired me. How do I share this video for you, for your listeners here?
Well, you see where it says present at the bottom? Yeah. You're in studio where it says present.
We'll just go do that.
You click on the present and then it'll say share and then you select your video.
All right. I'm just going to share my screen.
It says share screen. You should be able to share your video.
we're going to share this video. All righty.
Okay,
so
there it is.
This is a video of a school board meeting, and there's two clips here that I'd like to share with everybody, because this is really kind of the beginning of the inspiration. And I think it's where it may start for a lot of people that were kind of in my shoes. I have 4 kids. They were all in different levels of being involved in the school district at different schools in the time. And the mask mandates had ended. Kids went back to school. We chose to homeschool a few of our younger children, but my oldest son wanted to go back for his senior year. He didn't really need to. He was all but graduated. He needed like half a credit hour, but he went back. My wife and I were sitting upstairs in the family room one evening, and he comes up from the basement, which was odd for our, I think it was 18, 19-year-old at the time, to come up from the basement and have a conversation. But he said, "Hey, did you hear about this Judge Grishow ruling?" And we had both kind of read on social media what was going on. So we said, "Yeah, we heard all about that." He said, "Well, I don't want to wear a mask at school anymore, Dad." And so I looked at him and I said, "Keegan, you've really hustled to get through school. You've got all these college credits. You've done a really good job in high school, and I think you've kind of earned the ability to, if you don't want to wear a mask, don't wear a mask. But you need to be respectful, and you need to comply with anything that the administration or any leadership in the school tells you. If you do that, you won't have a problem with me." But I said, I don't know how to work out for you." So I think he saw that as a green light from Dad. He went to school, and he had trouble not wearing a mask at school. But I want to play he ended up getting kicked out of school. You'll hear his presentation here. You're going to hear a presentation of another young man first. But I went to a school board meeting when he was currently kicked out of school for not wearing a mask, and I had a proud dad moment. So I'm going to play the video so you can see it. This was some of my inspiration here. I'm going to fast forward through this.
No one will
hopefully
force you to dine in at a restaurant. You can drop.
So the first,
without the control of the government or
this is KJ. KJ is one of my son's friends at school. He's got a kid in the community, grown up in our community his whole life. And KJ had issues with masks as well. So we'll hit play.
School officials or anyone else. Mask optional is a legal choice. A mask mandate is not legal because it takes away our medical freedoms. So if you guys decide to make Unit 5 mask optional, you are giving us our medical freedoms back because they have been stripped away from us for so long. Because I am standing up for my rights and expressing my constitutional rights, the Normal West administration has taken away my rights, my privilege to be honored at senior night this coming Friday. I was supposed to be honored with my parents standing right beside me, but that has been stripped away. Throughout the school year, I have been bullied by teachers and hall monitors as well as other students because of my political beliefs and my mask and not wearing a mask. I respect other people's rights to wear masks if they choose. I would appreciate some respect in return. It is never okay for a teacher to tell a student that they will duct tape their face or other such threats, especially of someone like me who is autistic. My parents have always taught me that my autism is not a disability, but is a different ability. These mitigations have caused so much distress in my life, and the school has been very slow to respond to my needs. Here's my call to action. For this board needs to abandon the mask mandate and alleviate the distress and subsequent mental health issues imposed on me and other students, and give the decision and responsibility back to whom it belongs, the students and the parents. Thank you.
All right, that's number one. The second one comes here in just a few more. Right at 128. So this is my son, Keegan.
You're on warning. You cannot speak out loud while someone else is making their comment.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
All right.
Thanks for that
we have
reminder.
Keegan Worth.
This is Rover.
Next following Keegan is Lindsay Mitchell.
All right, here we go.
Okay, so my name is Keegan Worth, KeaganWurth. My name is Keegan Worth. I'm currently a senior at Normal West. I was captain of the Normal West golf team and have varsity letters in golf and soccer. More importantly, I currently have a GPA of 4.73, and when I graduate from West, I will have accumulated 1.5 years worth of college credits. I tell you this now so you can understand all that I've accomplished in the shadow of COVID. When it comes to school, COVID has created immeasurable obstacles for all of us in the public education environment. We have experienced many limitations in achieving our full academic and athletic potential. From the struggles of e-learning to athletic events and seasons being canceled, COVID has deeply affected every student in the last 2 years. As we continue to navigate life in a world full of mitigations and guidelines, us as students have recently been given false hope. As we know, Judge Grishow ruled that the mask mandates in schools were implemented incorrectly, are now null and void, and that all schools in Illinois, quote, may govern accordingly. School districts across Illinois have dropped their mandates in response to this ruling. My friends all around central Illinois and even here in Bloomington Normal are enjoying the ability to decide whether or not they will wear a mask in school. But I am not able to enjoy that freedom. Unit 5 has decided that they will ignore the legal precedent that was set by Judge Grishow. As we navigate this legal gray area that the school board is exploiting, Unit 5 is trying to use their authority to enforce a mandate that they cannot legally enforce. After the email was sent out Sunday night stating that masks will still be required, I decided that enough is enough. So on Monday and today, I committed the atrocious act of going to school without my mask on.
Nice.
When asked to put on a mask, I respectfully declined. When I was told to go to the office, I followed instruction without any resistance. Both days, I was asked by a principal or assistant principal if I would like to put a mask on and go back to class, or stick with my decision and be sent home. Both days, I chose to have pride in myself. Both days, I chose to keep the mask off. I'm stepping up and sending a message to my staff and now directly to the school board that I will not be forced to follow a rule that undermines my legal rights as a student in the state of Illinois. I am doing what many students want to do but are too afraid to commit to. I'm doing what many teachers want to do but can't for fear of having their pay cut or losing their job entirely. There was a time for masks. In March of 2020, we were facing a new virus that we hadn't seen before. By masking, we were doing all that we could to protect ourselves and our communities. But the world is different now. The virus has changed. It isn't as severe as before, and there's treatments and vaccines easily and readily available. With all of this being said, I'm now calling on the school board to do better for their students and teachers alike and make masks optional so we can move forward together as a united school district. Thank you.
Nice. Wow.
Very nice. Very nice. So did you say you had another, was that
So-
another cut? But go ahead. Keep going. Keep going
Well, so
with the story.
that was my motivation, right?
Okay.
That was
Yep.
my like those two kids, man.
Inspiring, not only motivating,
They're political
inspiring.
powerhouses. Like
Yeah.
these
Yeah.
kids. I mean, you heard KJ talk about the problems he's had with teachers threatening to duct tape his mouth. I mean,
Yeah.
he told everybody. He says, "I'm autistic. This has had an impact on me."
Yeah.
Just like at that point, I'm a mess in the back. Like, wow, you know.
Yeah.
And then we get Keegan up there, and he was just so articulate, you know.
Yeah.
So once that's done, you get to the point where, like, as a parent, how can you let this? Like, there's stuff going on in the school district. There's stuff going on in front of these kids that is outside of their control, and they're really just victims of. How do you let this continue to happen? Right? They were being used as these pawns, these political pawns at that time, and it was a power grab in a lot of different situations. So, Keegan probably learned out of school because he continued to get kicked out.
Hey,
of school
stop reading the
Time came in
comment,
and
Brad. I saw
allowed
you read the comment. Are you reading the comments too? I know my wife, Mrs. Producer, is putting the comments up, and Brad's thinking I need to read those. Don't read them. Keep your eyes on the camera, Brad.
So yeah, these boys. I mean, Keegan wrote the speech himself. He spent time in my office every day getting his schoolwork done, so he didn't get behind. His teachers were very accommodating and helping to do that, and he got a lot of thank yous and credit from even teachers and other administrators that didn't have that same ability or that same courage to speak up. So as I watched those two young men kind of go through that situation, I'm like, how can we just sit on the sidelines and not become more active? The system's broken, and so we got to fix it. So we started down the path of learning what it would take to run for school board, and I can tell you that's a daunting task. That's not something for somebody that's not.
You just don't wake up one day and decide that your name's going to be on the ballot.
No, well, you kind of do, and then your wife tries to talk you out of it because she's truly a genius. Like she tried to convince me every which way this isn't a good idea, and she was right in every step of the way.
They usually are.
And
They
she
usually
paid some of
are.
the price for us, trying to get out there and be a part of the solution. She felt like she couldn't go on social media for months because it got so brutal for a while. I mean, this was a school board race. We went out and we kind of recruited and got together with 3 other kind of like-minded people that were all kind of focused on helping make that school a better, safer place for everybody and to get the spending under control. It was really just
what you're saying though, Brad, it's a microcosm of what we're doing at the federal level. It's the same thing.
Right.
Make America Great Again and is about controlling printing money and raising inflation through spending money. But go ahead, keep going.
Well, and the spending had truly gotten out of control, which I mean, it hits everybody in the community hard when they look at their property taxes. So I think the thing that really probably was a huge hurdle for us to overcome is the consolidated election that we had built this slate around that we were all running in. That consolidated election happened to have a very significant referendum on the ballot as well. And so we were never just running that race to try to become 4 members of the school board, which would give us the ability to really make some good, strong, conservative fiscal policy, but also to defeat a referendum where the students of the community were really kind of being held hostage by the administration. The community was almost being blackmailed in the sense that they were going to cut many of the programs that were near and dear to large chunks of the student population. Things like band and football and all kinds of other things were on the chopping block. Individual schools. It became really
sowing
kind of
sowing fear of loss.
For sure.
Dividing. Yep.
And so we had a good, strong group of candidates, I think. Still think we were good. We understood that not any one of us had any business winning that particular election and getting on the school board individually. It needed to be all 4 or it needed to be none.
Because if not, you guys would still be, if just 2 of you won, you would still be outnumbered. And
we would be outnumbered and it would just
never get anywhere.
We couldn't get any place. We weren't going to be able to make the change that was necessary. So to your point in the very beginning, when you kind of introduced me, David, you mentioned that comment I made. And I remember calling you that day and saying, what had happened is there was another school board meeting and an activist in the community had gone up in front of the school board and had addressed the school board and said that, there was a, current school board election and these opponents that were running right now, they were being funded. They were being funded by groups that were transphobic, homophobic, Muslim hating racists. It's a very specific string of.
You left out a few of them, but we'll keep going. Yeah.
They're being used to describe us, right?
Yeah.
So that was like that set me back because I'd never been called any of those names before. So we kind of put that, planted a seed in the back of our head. About a week or so later, I was watching a little news conference and J.B. Pritzker was on TV. And J.B. Pritzker had said that he was taking notice of some downstate school board elections that were being funded and run by groups that were transphobic, homophobic, Muslim-hating racists. And he used the exact same string of adjectives.
Hitler, Nazis,
which I thought was odd. And that's what caused me to call you and say, hey, we can do a lot of good. We can create a lot of political movement, I think, here in McLean County, but we can't beat billionaire J.B. Pritzker. And that local school board election was very much, you could follow the money back through. It was very much funded by a much larger organization that we were just honestly ill prepared and never probably had a chance to push
and
back.
For our audience, Brad, I know that sometimes we just throw things out because we have been steeped in the political process now for years. When we talk about consolidated elections, 2025, so your odd years in Illinois, we have what's called consolidated elections. And historically, consolidated meant that they were nonpartisan races. So you didn't file as a Republican or file as a Democrat. You filed a petition to get on the ballot. And unfortunately, for a very long period of time, we Republicans believed that everybody was playing nice in the sandbox, only to come out and realize that there was nothing nonpartisan about.
You got a few turds in your pockets after you dumped the standout.
It really smacked us in the face early on in this, and it was a wake-up call because in the very early stages of the election, we had gone and we looked through all of the petitions, and we understood that those petitions had to be filled out a certain way, and very specific forms had to be used, and at least 2 of the candidates They didn't use the same forms, one of them, and one of them forgot to put the county on his petition form. It's it's kind of an important piece of the form because you need to declare the county that you're going to be running it. So there were some errors, right? So the process for getting those at least looked into was to submit
an objection.
So we go down to do that. We go to Kathy Michael's office, and again, we'd been in there a few times. Myself and I think it was Dennis at the time, who was one of the other candidates that was running as part of our slate we put together. We went down there, and again, we had done the legwork, we'd done the digging, we tried to figure out the right forms to use, and I think we did a pretty good job just helping each other out.
Yeah.
We go down and we get a piece of paper from Kathy Michael's office that outlines what needs to go, what the information is that we need to put down and how we need to file that complaint.
You can object to this petitioner.
This objection gets filed, and we follow the document from Kathy Michael's office to the T. I mean, every piece of information that was on that document that was said to be required, we put down, and we even took it down and hand delivered it at her office. And a guy looked over it and looked at it and said, "Okay, thanks. We'll take care of it." So I think that filing of an objection was something we didn't take lightly, because at the end of the day, we want anybody that wants to run to get out and run. We didn't want to file an objection just to kind of be a pain, but we thought there was some stuff that didn't quite look right. So we roll into the hearing for this objection, and we were met with a very high-powered attorney out of Springfield that was representing these two other individuals, and he was representing both of them. So I think that was our wake-up call. We understood very quickly that these two didn't pay for that attorney. That attorney was placed in front of them, and that they were part of something much bigger than any of them individually.
Brad, you're being very politically correct. So, and you might not want me to expose the organization that brought that attorney on board, but I can't help myself. I'm going to. It was the Illinois Education Association, UNISERV, and their hitman, or the leader of the pack, Ben Matthews, decided to reach out to an attorney who represented Michael J. Madigan. You're right, the Speaker of the House in the General Assembly of Illinois.
Yeah,
as big as you can get for a objection. To a school board candidate in downstate Illinois, McLean County.
Yes. So, needless to say, what he found is that we did not include our address on those objection forms. Again, that address piece was not a piece of the documentation we had from Kathy Michael's office. It is a piece of Illinois statute, if you get into it and read that, which is insanely long. But it's a legitimate concern and a legitimate reason not to allow the objection according to additional previous case law. So our objections were thrown out, and they never even looked into the fact of, hey, the county was missing. And so he got that squashed. So that was our wake-up call to, hey, we're doing something that's different than just running for a nonpartisan school board race. So then we had to just kind of figure out how to wade through those waters. We got organized quickly as a group. We went down and we met with the Republican Party of McLean County, and they helped us through just, again, making sure paperwork was set up correctly, how we got all the signatures, walking us through the beginning phases of that. But then we had to get some type of exposure, right? So we understood, if we're going to do this, how do we didn't have a budget. We didn't really have any financial backing. We got a little bit here and there from a couple of events that we did. So we went out and we built a website. We got a little domain name. It was Unit 5 Students First. So that's my tech background that helped out there. So we went out, secured a cool domain name, and we started building out this platform called Unit 5 Students First. Got on GoDaddy and even built out, I thought it was a pretty slick little website that could just kind of outline the platform and what we were trying to do, and allowed us to continue to communicate with the public. Now, the cool part about that was that we did get a little publicity and pushback from the other candidates, because they thought we were being backed by something special. And maybe that's where that transphobic, homophobic, Muslim-hating, racist comment came from. Because I think we put on a very professional sort of a look, but man, at the end of the day, it was a shoestring budget with us. Like, I made that thing on the couch in my family room. Like, it wasn't anything of any real significance or that took any funding to get pulled together. So anybody can do it and can get a pretty professional looking, at least professional enough that people want to call you names, looking kind of platform and campaign pulled together. So from there, I think looking back on it, one of the things that I wish we would have done a little differently, and we didn't have a lot of input on how to do this. We got a little bit here and there. DPB was you were probably one of our kind of biggest data points. We got some good help from Desi Anderson too, just on strategy and how to get out and what to do and how to do it. Because again, none of us had ever done this before. We're not politicians.
Well, and the biggest
we were
thing,
business owners, dads, moms, grandpas. I mean, those were our.
In the biggest thing, I remember those meetings, those early morning meetings at your office. I kept stressing to you, as I did to even who you just mentioned, Desi Anderson, that there's something called ballot harvesting, and I know there's a debate whether that's the term that you should use, because in some states it's supposed to be quasi illegal, right? Sure. But at least reaching out to the voters in a manner, if we saw it, if ever there was a demonstration of what truly moving the needle when it comes to voters, it's utilizing this thing we all tend to hold in our hand and we communicate with. This is where the presidential race of 2024 was won, because they were able to communicate directly with voters. And it's expeditious, right? This isn't going door to door, handing out literature that usually gets dumped in the garbage anyway. It's putting out a message that lends people to feel involved with their community, to get involved, to activate, to fortify your troops. And that's what I had brought to the table, and I will continue to bring to the table, is we need to meet voters where voters are at, and then we need to meet non-voters where non-voters are at, because unless we get non-voters to show up, we're not going to win elections. And that's what the Trump campaign and the RNC, the Republican National Committee, was able to do. They were able to get unreliable, non-voters out to cast a vote on Make America Great Again. And that's how they won it. Now, I know that you're going to tie this in, Brad, because you heard how we kind of let off. Our county, McLean County, which the largest school district in McLean County is Unit 5, where you ran for school board, they turned blue. And that's not something that just happened yesterday or last week. I know we lost the county board. It's now 12-8. Before going into last Tuesday's election, it was a 10-10 county board. And in years gone by, looking back 10 years ago, 2014, it was probably a 15-5, 16-4 county board. This has been migration towards this, for whatever reason. The local Democrat Party has wanted to control the county board because they knew they didn't have the numbers for county-wide races, but yet they did have the numbers to win school boards, library boards, and the whole list goes on. I think Joanne put it up a little bit ago that what's on the ballot in McLean County for the April election, the consolidated nonpartisan election, is 350 seats, which goes to show you that Illinois in of itself is burdened still by too many units of government. You've heard me say it once, you've heard me say it twice. Illinois has close to well over 7,500 units of government, where you contrast that with a state with twice as many people. The population of Florida is almost twice as many as Illinois, and they have 1,650 units of government. They have county-wide school districts, meaning they have 74 counties. I think it's 74. I might be off by a couple, but they have 74 counties. So they have 74 county school districts, not 853 school districts. Then you look into townships, library boards, water commissioners, road commissioners, and the list goes on. But that's what's going to be on the ballot. And here we are in McLean County, and a lot of those positions are under the control of, what I have referred to as those people who aren't necessarily pro-America. They will tell you they are, but they're not. They're anti-Constitution because they want to They want to rewrite the Constitution. And that was evidenced in what your son went through, because this all is predicated on what J.B. Pritzker put forth. In fact, I just saw a meme a little bit ago on my phone that J.B. instituted over 44 executive orders when most states surrounding us were well past a year out of the mandates and the restrictions and lockdowns and all the masking. Other states had opened up and were free. Illinois was one of the last. But that's also been part of the entire zeitgeist of recreating a Illinois into the image of these people that we're up against. And that's what's going to continue here in McLean County. Granted, we have 4 of the 5 state rep seats are Republican. 1 or 2 of the 3 Senate seats are Republican. But most of those consolidated election positions are Democrats.
Yeah. The school board we saw as being probably one of, like, all of those, where all those positions are very necessary to keep the community healthy and moving forward. We saw that the school board seats were especially kind of powerful from a fiscal perspective.
Yes.
And they have the ability to spend about 78% of your property tax money every year. So every individual in the community is paying a fairly large chunk of their property taxes to those local school districts. And we just felt that for the amount of money being spent, it could get better. And it should. The way that they quantify success in their own Illinois Report Card website was showing that we were having anything but success at that time. And there'd be pockets of it in any school district for sure.
Yeah.
But at the same time, for the amount of money that was being pumped in, we needed to find a way to make it better. And also there had been a period of kind of stagnation in our community too, where the property values hadn't increased for quite a period of time. And we knew that was actively changing as inflation was on the horizon, as we were coming out of the COVID stuff. We knew that we would start to see those valuations increase, and that there was going to be a raise that the school district would receive just because the valuations were going up so significantly.
Valuations of property, therefore tax dollars come flowing in. And
Correct.
We also were dealing with a major employer in Rivian, and their
that was creating an additional demand in the community, right?
Yeah.
Which the community didn't have a great answer for, and I would argue probably still doesn't have a great answer for. So that drove prices up. So we knew that piece was on the horizon, and the referendum wasn't going to be as necessary as everybody, as the administration wanted to convince everybody that, that it was. And just now recently, in hindsight, people are starting to get their property tax statements. They're seeing how much they're going up, 40% here, 35% from some other people. And it was all like the one thing I learned probably from going through this, first of all, is listen to your wife, because she knew all along. It was chaotic. We got to see some parts of some of the maybe nastier parts of relationships and stuff in the community that I didn't need to, like. It was sad. We had people we'd known for years that wanted to call us names and say that, and all we were trying to do was fight to make it better. Listen to your wife, Tanya says. That's right.
Yeah, I say so, I saw it. No, yeah.
Always. So everything was done from a place of trying to help and trying to make it a better situation. We're trying to, put Unit 5 students first, and that was the goal. But at the end of the day, there were powers at play there that, man, just to overcome that. I mean, it was one of the larger consolidated elections we ever had in the community. I think it was the largest, and just a huge amount of mail-in ballots came in during that particular consolidated election, which again is unprecedented for a consolidated election.
And you're right, but now it's been matched. It's been superseded because it was an off-year election. 23 was a consolidated election. Now you have 24. You get into the primary, then the general election. Now we're seeing 10 precincts that pretty much serve or are part of the Illinois State University community. And once again, you and I have talked about this. I want to remain upbeat. I believe that the best is yet to come. I believe the president of the United States, our future president, past president, future president is going to abolish the Department of Education. Therefore, it returns back to the states, where he's going to try to expedite that as quickly as possible because of the amount of money that's being burned. When Jimmy Carter initiated the Department of Education, we were #1 in education. Here, 40 years later, we rank 24. So I don't know how all that money has been spent, but it's obviously fleecing of America. But we want to keep things upbeat because I believe there are a lot of good things on the horizon. Illinois State University be one of them. But that has been their stressor, is they have leaned into university communities like Champaign, like Bloomington, Normal with Illinois State University, like Peoria with Bradley, and the junior colleges. That's where the control is right now. You and I had talked about this. The largest employers in most of these counties anymore downstate are the school systems, whether it's public school systems in the K through 12 or public universities like Illinois State University, University of Champaign, or University of Illinois Champaign-Urbana. And so there has been a movement to create a ruling class within those university communities. That's going to go away too because they're accredited, and those accreditation and those people accrediting them are going to be held to a different standard, where we're not going to see, just a running of the table on conservative thought and conservative ideology, which is what Keegan and RJ, is it RJ? KJ referred to. I might be different, but that doesn't mean that my opinion isn't valued, because we live in a country where we have the right to free speech and to the right to have liberty and differences of opinions with others, which that seemed to go away here over the last 3.5 years. But we know that's going to be coming back, and it's going to be coming back strong. But the point that I wanted to make about those 10 precincts surrounding Illinois State University is they blew it out. I mean, you talk about a walk-off home run in the 9th inning. That's what Sharon Chung did in the 91st state rep seat. They were able to mobilize a mass turnout, where the sum of those 10 precincts is going to be like 6,000 people in just 10 precincts, where they were same-day registration, which is allowed in Illinois. Students were able to come in and change where they vote at, meaning they probably were registered in Downers Grove or DuPage County or Will County, and they were able to change it to one precinct. So one precinct, number 8 precinct in Normal, was able to have this influx. Do you know what the percentage was, Brad? I know I'm asking you a tough question. The percentage of turnout, voter turnout in Normal 8, which is the 8th precinct, like 167% voter turnout.
Wow.
And number 30, which is the other precinct that votes at the Illinois State University Bone Student Center, it was 123% voter turnout.
Yeah.
One of the other precincts that serves, which is right next, it's the United Methodist Church, they had 143% voter turnout, which means they were totally shifting the electorate on same day. So when we wonder why it is that the county flipped, because this is the machine that you just spoke of. The political machine comes to kill, steal, and destroy. And if you get in their way, whether you're Amy Jada, Molly Emery, Dennis Frank, Brad Wurth, some of the most competent individuals for the position of school board, because all you guys were business related. You weren't part of the university community. It's amazing how these school boards now have become pretty much made up of other public officials who already hold a position where their salaries are paid by the public system. So, and there's nothing wrong with that. We do need people employed in the public sector. But when you totally box out the private sector, then what do you have left over?
You definitely lose some perspective, right? You lose you lose the perspective of what goes on in that public sector. How, like, I own a business, right? You lose the ability to tap into the resources of the community that understands the grit that it takes to run a business nowadays, right? You mentioned that Methodist church. I think that's the one over on ISU campus, right?
Yeah, that's right next to
that
it.
was that brings back a memory during this campaign. That it's one of these like heartbreaking moments. There was a sweet old guy and his wife that were there. I don't remember his name, but from his accent, I could tell he probably wasn't born in the United States, but he was probably, well into his 80s. And they came to the church just to hear the administration talk about the referendum and everything. And he stood up a couple times and asked questions. And he just asked the administration, so my property taxes are not going to go up if I vote yes for this, right? They're not going to go up. And they assured him they wouldn't go up. And we asked questions, we said there was some other stuff going on, some electioneering stuff that we were trying to highlight at the time that nobody seemed to care about either. But we asked Dr. Weichel at the time, how can we continue to tell people that their taxes aren't going to go up? This will absolutely make your property taxes go up. We're changing the rate. Yeah. So he was being bombarded with a few of us that were running for a position that were just at that meeting, listening to the administration, trying to ask questions and maybe be a little bit disruptive. And the administration that was up there giving a presentation, and this guy just couldn't wrap his mind around it. And finally, he just kind of threw his hands up. He's like, okay, if the kids need the money, like that guy his property taxes have gone up. And I wonder if he's realized it. Like, I wonder where he's at, what he's doing now, because he was trying to figure it out. And he just wasn't getting, like, he was getting half. Well,
he wasn't being told the truth. And correct. Now we know the truth. The truth is,
now we know the truth.
That
and the
money,
new coin
the
phrase
money
I have from this whole experience is when it comes to elections and politics, it's facts and data lead to I told you so moments.
Yeah.
The facts and data.
and Unit 5 today took that money. No, they didn't close any schools or any programs, shut anything off. The fear tactics didn't work. They wanted to divide and conquer. That's what they do on that side of the aisle. It's fear porn. I mean, they pour that fear porn out like, nobody does a better job. But they casted this doubt in the electorate's mind that Johnny's violin recital is going to be canceled forever and ever. Right. And what really it was about was growing the administration, creating more growth within the Unit 5 schools. Yes, teachers probably were paid a little bit more. They added additional staff, but none of what they positioned for, why they needed the money, was truly, it was the old shell game. They just hit it. But no, now let's talk about going forward, because I'm past my 5 o'clock hour, but I want to get your input on this. When we look to the future, we have, as Joanne Knippmeyer said, all these positions. And right now, unfortunately, we don't have candidates for the Unit 5 school board or the District 87 school board. I don't know how they're doing in the area-wide schools. Most of the time, the area-wide schools tend to have conservative thinking people on the school board, so it balances itself out for the most part, especially in the school district where your kids go to now, in the Downs School District, which is ranked one of the top schools in not only the state, but one of the top schools in the country. So here we are. We're on the eve of another election year, and we don't have candidates. I don't know if it serves us to continue to convince people that they should put their names in the hopper, only to know that they're going to be, brought to in front of the powers to be and flogged daily until the election.
Yeah, I don't know how you convince somebody, especially when it's the off year consolidated election where you don't have the ability to really, to get a majority on the school, like on a school board situation. I think there's maybe 2 seats open. It's not enough to make change. So it's a very difficult time probably to churn up any interest for somebody to run. I think you would have 2 years, even if you did get some like-minded people in the following consolidated election, it would be at least 2 years where those board meetings would be very long and trying, and you wouldn't really have much of an ability to have a say in anything. I think what Jeremy was the last guy that was kind of
Jeremy DeHaan, he just resigned. Yes.
Yeah,
just
he did.
resigned.
And I think he could probably tell that story pretty well, because that was the reality of his kind of school board
His
existence.
Yep.
Yeah, it was that way the whole time. So what doesn't mean you can't do anything, but at the same time, you're going to be severely limited.
But isn't it a strategy, don't you think? And I'm going to present this tonight at the Republican Party when we get together in our board. Why not let them have it? Let them have the ability to run the table, because ultimately now the public will be able to see what happened in 23. They lied to you. I mean, this is not only at the school board level, this is at the state level, the county level. They've been lying. That was proven in the national election we just had last week. You know it from the media to the candidates. They weren't telling the truth, and people push back. I don't think it's bad enough in McLean County yet for people to see. I know that the taxes, we're just starting to realize those tax bills.
I think the taxes are waking people up, DPB.
Yeah.
I really do. I mean, the increases are significant. And I sit across the desk from enough people that are, especially in the last 6 to 8 months, where they're just, how do I have the money to pay my bills, right? Like it's that excuse me, inflation coupled with those taxes going up. It's a significant hurdle for a lot of people in the community. So there's,
but
that,
you're not
may be the catalyst for change, but
Yeah.
without a real formal organized effort in how to create success out of that change, I don't know that it.
Well, and I think it's time. I think it's time to go offline, and I have no problem announcing a strategy. I always admire Woody Hayes at Ohio State. He used to have the old 3 yards in a cloud of dust philosophy. He didn't have a problem telling you what hole he was going to run in as a football coach. He just dared you to stop him. Well, I think we can be that bold too if we're on target with our messaging. And I believe that time is coming. I think we're seeing it. I think we're going to feel the effects of a new president, because it is something that resonates all the way down to the local level. I think that it was reassuring that Illinois turned a little less blue, more to a light blue, maybe a purple in this last presidential election, which tells us people want the common decency of what drives the American economy. And it sure isn't the nonsense that we've heard in schools for a long time. The issue of masking, that to me, as soon as masking, the judge ruled on that should have been a no-brainer. But unfortunately, it goes to show you how lingering effects can truly disrupt communities and young people's lives. And thank God for not only President Donald J. Trump, but a guy like Robert F. Kennedy, who's going to get to the bottom of a lot of this nonsense that's gone on. And I think we're going to see a shifting. I think we need the federal government. We need the National Guard. I can understand why J.B. Pritzker is wanting to fortify, Gavin Newsom's wanting to fortify California and all the other states that are interesting enough. They don't have voter ID in those states. They want to fortify their states because they know what's coming. I think there is on the horizon some change. There's a new day dawning, a new sheriff in town. Hey, I know we're well over time. Brad, I do have to let you know that I don't believe that the federal election was the cause of. I know that there are a lot of people out there working their tails off. I've mentioned Scott Pressler, Dan Bongino. They did yeoman's work. But what happened a week ago Monday, well, it would have been Monday before last, because yesterday was Monday. See how I did? I was quick on that. We got down on our knees and we prayed as a nation. and I'm not saying every Christian prayed, but we called upon God in heaven to spare, to have mercy on our country for turning away from those principles that our nation was founded on, godly principles. In fact, we know we are endowed by our Creator. Who is our Creator? God. And we appealed to the heavens for what transpired last Tuesday. So I'm going to give all the glory and praise to God. I don't know if you know this about me or not, Brad. If you've been on the DPB show, I ended in prayer. So
Yep.
I'm going to go ahead and do that. All right. Dear eternal and gracious Father, we thank you. We thank you that we live in a country where we have the ability to worship in a free manner. We have the ability to speak openly and freely. Thank you, Lord, for especially those two young men that a couple of years ago, they had the courage and the boldness to say enough is enough and stand up for what they know the Constitution allows them to have, which is the freedom of not only liberty and voice, but a freedom of religion, a freedom of bodily autonomy, a freedom of all of the above. We thank you for having mercy on this nation. We don't know what tomorrow holds, but we know that as we continue to lean into you, this country will continue to be one nation under God, indivisible. Thank you, Lord. And with that, Lord, a big amen. Amen. All right.
Hey,
Brad?
DPB, can I do a quick shameless plug at the end of your show for a friend of mine?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. So one of my great kind of mentors and friends, John Stevens, that owns Stevens Auto Glass next to my office. His wife recently wrote a book.
Glass. Okay.
Yeah, his wife recently wrote a book, and like your wife writes books, right?
Yeah, book writer.
He came in one day and he told me Sharon's shoulder was hurting her. She was going to have to go to the doctor. And we're like, oh, that's too bad. We have what's going on with Sharon? Well, he found out a couple weeks later that she'd secretly been spending the last 3 years handwriting a book. Okay, and the book is called "When God Showed Up."
Oh my goodness!
When God Showed Up. That's a picture of Sharon at the bottom and John here in his uniform.
Let me expand it. There you go. Put it up there again. All right. When God showed up.
When God showed up. It's available on Amazon.
Handwriting a book. My wife, the author, is going question mark.
This is my wife's signed copy from Sharon Stevens. So the premise of the book is it's a lot of stories of faith. John, her husband's been out talking to all the insurance agents around the state that he calls on, and anybody else he can get in front of, tell them about the book, which is awesome. I want to kind of do the same thing. Sharon's had some really cool experiences in her life where she's found that God showed up. And one of the really cool stories in here is about the piano marathon of 1967. Okay. So not to spoil it, but they didn't have any money. John was deployed. They had their first child. His daughter was born already. And Sharon was back here worrying about her husband being off in Vietnam. And she had an opportunity. She loved playing the piano. She had an opportunity to play in a piano marathon. She played that piano for 3 days straight. And she tells the story of what went through her mind and her physical, restrictions that she overcame to win this piano marathon so that she could get enough money to fly out and see her husband, who was on R&R in Hawaii. It's a cool story.
My.
Cool
wow.
Stuff.
Wow. Well,
so when God showed up, it's on Amazon.
When God showed up on Amazon, get the book. I can't even imagine. Maybe I need to get her on my show, or at least John. To
you need more than an hour.
Well, that's all right. We run based on the Constitution. So on this free format called a StreamYard in the DPB show, we can go as long as we want. I'm not Ty Smith. I'm not going to do marathon shows of 4 hours, but it's good to have Ty Smith here a couple shows ago. He jumped on and my viewing numbers went through the ceiling because the Modern Renaissance Man has a little larger audience than the DPB show. But hey, we're growing year by year, more in 2024. Brad, thank you. And I want to continue to have you back because you have such great insight because this is all common sense. This isn't about politics. It's about people. And I know a lot of people use that as a cliche. Many people who actually run for office and are career politicians, you always say it's about people, not politics. No, it's truly about politics for most, because it consumes you. And it's good to talk to real common sense leaders of our community. So we look forward to having you back on our show. Stay around as I end the show, but as I end our show, I love you. Jesus loves you more. Until Thursday, now we're going to try to talk about what is up with Arizona and their inability to figure out how to count ballots and turn in results in a timely manner. Similar, we have some issues in many counties and many areas, so we're going to hit upon those, Michigan, Wisconsin, but we're going to cover all that. But when I tell you that, who knows what's going to transpire between right now and when we come back live 4:00 on Thursday, because things are happening on a national level, on a state level, and on a county level that, hold on, as Donald Trump said, hold on to those britches, because you need to, because things are moving quickly. So until we meet again, I bid you farewell. We'll see you soon.